What's going on, pre-Chiro students? Dr. Ben with another interesting, meaningful conversation that's relevant to you by just sharing insights, by having conversations with chiropractors in the field and people that are involved in the profession. Today we have Dr. Shawn Dill. Dr. Dill, can you just get us started by introducing yourself, letting us know a little bit about what your background was before you became a chiropractor, what attracted you to becoming a chiropractor, and what that pivot point was or what that transition was like?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a pleasure to be with you. First of all, thank you so much for taking the time to allow me to share with you and your amazing audience. I've been fortunate enough to be in the chiropractic profession since 1992. That was when I started chiropractic college at Logan Chiropractic College in Chesterfield, Missouri. Prior to that, my experience with chiropractic really had to do with my cousin. My cousin was a chiropractor, and he, Dr. Hernandez in Mequon, Wisconsin, and he really inspired me through junior high, high school to pursue being a chiropractor. But honestly, when I got to undergrad at Indiana University, I sort of had second thoughts, and I don't think really second thoughts about chiropractic so much as second thoughts about going to graduate school. I was having a great time. My cousin flew down to Bloomington, Indiana. I was at Indiana University. Flew me from there to Palmer, to Davenport. I didn't end up going there, but he sat me down in his office from Davenport. We flew back to Mequon, and he sat me down and he said, you got to get your stuff together, and said, you need to get into a chiropractic college. I don't care which one you go to, just figure it out. And so being young, I picked St. Louis because it was a bigger town than Davenport, Iowa. And so I ended up over there at Logan. And thankfully, I made my way through and then was able to get out into practice.
Mm-hmm. That was a while ago. Can you reflect back on what that experience was like going to chiropractic school? What were some surprises or bigger challenges that you faced when you were there?
Well, I kind of have to be careful with my answer a little bit because, I had you as a student. No longer am teaching, but I do serve on the board at Sherman College of Chiropractic. So interestingly, having graduated from Logan, now serving on the board at Sherman College. And so even having said that and tempering my answer a little bit, I was actually shocked at how easy it was. I kind of thought I had in mind, in undergrad doing my prereqs, I knew that I was just going to chiropractic college. So I just was ticking off all of the prereqs. And frankly, at Indiana University, uh, the prereqs, you have organic chemistry, physiology, and those were frankly a little bit hard for me there. And so I expected chiropractic college to be extremely challenging academically. When I got to the college, and maybe it's a reflection of the college I went to, I don't know, but it was a lot easier than I had imagined. But also, what struck me was the amount of hours that it requires, right? So you're literally in school the entire day. And I wasn't used to that coming out of undergrad. So having to adjust what my mindset relative to studying, being in class, etc. But thankfully, it wasn't like super rigorous. I wasn't failing out of classes. I'd always done well academically, and I found chiropractic college to be easier. And the other thing that shocked me in hindsight, but I knew this right away. I actually knew this on day one of my chiropractic college, was how little chiropractic I was being taught. And I realized that it was unfortunate, but I realized too later on in life that the majority of things in life are this way: is that you must command your own destiny. You can't expect for people to hand deliver you or spoon feed you everything that you need in life. You must learn chiropractic philosophy, chiropractic technique, and you must learn business skills at all costs if you actually are desiring to reach as many people as possible.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and when you were my teacher, you had shared a story about early days in practice. Can you just reflect on those early days in practice, getting out of school, having gone through a program that didn't have a lot of chiropractic in it, and maybe having to learn the hard way, or maybe not? Maybe you had great mentors, but what was your experience like when you graduated school? Where'd you go? What'd you do? What did you encounter, and what did you learn through those experiences?
Yeah, I mean, and I want to also recognize your work with a podcast like this, with sharing this information, because what it does, hopefully, is it helps to cut down the learning curve for a lot of people. And hopefully people will honestly take your guests and their experiences to heart and not repeat the same mistakes. I think that's, the biggest value. And in my case, I had wonderful mentors. I was a student of dynamic essentials. So like I said, I figured out that I wasn't being taught chiropractic. I attended every single dynamic essentials meeting while I was in chiropractic college 4 times a year. I was in St. Louis. I would drive with a bunch of my classmates to Atlanta, Georgia, and sit in these meetings with Sid Williams and other really fantastic chiropractors of that time. Jimmy Gregg, Ian Grossum, Sotilli, Sigafus. That was where I first encountered Michael Kale. Just amazing, amazing mentors. Fred Barge, I remember spending lengths of time with Fred, talking to him, after the meeting. And here's the thing is, even though I had those people in my life and I had access to them, there's something about human nature, especially I think when you're in your 20s. I was 24 when I graduated chiropractic college, is that, you oftentimes, I think it's also like a reflection of like your relationship with your parents. You're like, I know better, right? And so knowing better, I left chiropractic college after I graduated and moved immediately to Costa Rica. I didn't speak a lick of Spanish. I was like, well, that's not going to matter. Who cares? That's pretty important when you're doing chiropractic. Communication is important. After my first year, I was like down to my last penny, literally. Like I had no money, had literally just bombed it in practice. I was seeing about 4 people a week and was seriously considering throwing in the towel. I actually, at that point, I continue to be, I'm a massive Green Book reader. At that time, I turned back to, I was like, well, BJ Palmer is the greatest chiropractor that ever lived, as far as results and as far as financial success. I think that's lost on a lot of people. I think that currently people look at mentors of today and they're like, wow, do you know so-and-so, so-and-so? I don't know, maybe even my name gets thrown in there. But I got to tell you, financially, I'm not at that level that BJ Palmer was in 1961. BJ Palmer died with a net worth that exceeded $60 million. And, the research clinic opened in the 30s at a cost of $1 million. Nobody's opening their clinics at $1 million these days. You would really be making a mark if you did. And I turned back to the Green Books and I decided to really just lean back in the principle, which, look, that's not anything they weren't saying at DE. And then my first year in practice ended that first year seeing about 4 people a week. Second year in practice ended my second year seeing about 200 patients a day. And everything changed because 1, I got better at Spanish, and 2, I became far more grounded in the principle. And I also got to say, in my technique, I practice upper cervical, and I was doing a bastardized version of upper cervical. I always tell people, don't steal this from me, but I hear it all the time whenever I'm teaching at seminars where people are like, I do upper cervical too. And then I do all these other things. And I'm like, yeah, that was what I did my first year. And it got me exactly 4 patients a week. When I decided that if I was going to become a student of BJ Palmer, and BJ said, do this exactly as I did, you'll get the exact same results I did. I decided to I was like, well, what the heck? Just do upper cervical and see what happens. What could be worse than 4 a week? And everything changed. And, thankfully we just haven't looked back since then.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And can you just reflect on what the experience is like to see 200 a day in your second year out of practice, and to see the value of your education? Like you had mentioned, a lot of the times you're in undergrad, you're looking out at grad school, there's a big price on the education, and you might not see the value that it could provide for you in your life. So having been given the opportunity to see 200 people, regardless of how much money you made from that, that's a huge impact that you're able to make in a community that you showed up in Costa Rica, that you didn't grow up in, and that you were able to reach people in. So can you mention just kind of what changed for you, mindset wise, after you started finding success, and how that carried over into the next step?
Yeah. So, well, first of all, what is it like to see 250 people in a day? I 200 after my first year. Eventually, we got up to like the most I've seen in a day was 300 and like single digits, 302, 303, somewhere in there. But I got to tell you, after 300 and something visits in a day, you're pretty dang tired. You don't really, and I hear all the time these people are like, oh, did you hear about so and so and Timbuktu? They're seeing 1,000 people a day. I was like, man, if you shake hands with 1,000 people in a day, you'd be tired after just doing
Mhm.
that. So I
Mhm.
don't know if that's a little bit of an exaggeration or they're superhuman. But I got to tell you, even at 300, like honestly, from a physical standpoint, you don't really feel like doing it again. Look, I practiced after that first year, I practiced another 8 years in Costa Rica, and where we averaged at least 200 patient visits every day for 5.5 days a week. People are like, man, Costa Rica, that's great. Like, what's your favorite beach? Like, I was working. I don't know about my favorite beach. But I also got to tell you, it did take a toll on me physically. Chiropractic is a physical art form. And, it's like anything. It's like golf. It's like football. It's like any sort of competitive, physical, athletic activity. And it takes a toll on your body over time. And so that's one thing that I realized. I had somebody say to me yesterday, man, like I haven't seen you in a while and you look better now, than you did before. But I also think that, I mean, and like any athlete, and I'm not putting myself in the athlete category, but like any athlete, you learn to take care of yourself better.
Mhm.
But that also includes your mind, your mindset, and you mentioned that as well.
Mhm.
And I think that early on in life, you're chasing numbers, these ghosts of how many patient visits, what was your top line or bottom line revenue, and later on in life, you begin to realize that it's really more about impact. And you also mentioned that word. And I think that too often we are taught this idea of you never get a second chance to make a first impression. And in reality, impression is not made and in your first encounter. Oftentimes, you might have encountered somebody multiple times before that impression is made.
Mhm.
So one, I think impression is far overrated. We give way too much emphasis on impression. I think especially when we're teaching business and chiropractic students business and rapport. But I think and more important than first impression is first impact. And when we talk about the impact that you're able to make in someone's life, that's the translation that goes beyond that encounter. And I just think that, for me, I'm very happy. Not only in that after my first year in practice where I super struggled, in my year two, I actually wrote the law that regulates chiropractic in the country of Costa Rica still to this day. I am working on a project. I have one more law that I want to write because I think that, and it's in the Philippines, and I think that that is an impactful act. I haven't been to Costa Rica in years, but the impact of that law that allows chiropractors who might be watching right now and say, I'd like to go to Costa Rica. It's a beautiful country. I'd like to practice there. Well, the opportunity to do that is afforded by the impact that was made during that time. And it wasn't easy. I mean, I was a kid. I was 26 years old. I don't know, what do you know about writing a law in a foreign country? And I barely spoke Spanish, remember? But we got it done. And that for me was the impact. That for me, honestly, is far more important. It's a far greater accomplishment than any numbers of patients that I might have seen. Leaving a legacy that allows this profession to be practiced for, hopefully eternity. I mean, I guess it could be overturned. Is the impact that I'm proud to have left in Costa Rica. And again, I'd like to do that. I don't know of anybody that has authored two laws in two different countries in the world. And so that is a very big goal of mine to see that get done.
Mhm. No, I mean, I appreciate the contribution. I know that it's important to you to see the profession stronger after you kind of gave back to it what it's given to you. And one of the dynamic essentials, I believe, is lasting purpose. So it sounds like when you got out to Costa Rica, you said, "Okay, I'm successful. How can I pave the way for the next generation?" And that's what we're trying to do right here with this conversation. I remember a story you shared, and it's pretty vague in my memory, but it was about you having a bag of a bunch of money in it and you not really having much savviness with business. I think it was an example of how um, sort of uneducated or lacking in business literacy or financial literacy you were at one point in life. Can you describe kind of what financial literacy means to you today and how you contextualize business for chiropractors with what the projects that you're working on right now?
I got to tell you, I do a lot of interviews, but I've never been with somebody that had such like research stories. Oh my gosh. I've never had anybody pull that story out on me. It's absolutely true. Well, first of all, Costa Rica is all cash environment. They have socialized medicine. So they have a type of insurance, but obviously they're not covering chiropractic at that time. People were paying me in cash. I didn't have a computer. So I had like a appointment book that was written down at people's appointments, and people would pay cash. And then at the end of the night, the front desk would hand me a wad of cash. My hours, and look, that's another thing that's important. My hours to see that number of people. I worked from 9 a.m. to 9 p.m. So by the time I got done, the banks were closed, and I worked 5.5 days a week. I was only off on Saturday afternoon. Banks were closed, and Sundays. So I literally put all this money. I had this sort of like a little man purse. I guess if you're a fan of The Hangover, it was a satchel, and I would carry this thing around, and it was loaded with cash. You're right. I just didn't know. I paid everything in cash. I would walk into a restaurant to grab a meal, and I'd have this satchel. I mean, for Costa Rica standards, I mean, it had a ton of money in it. But look, I didn't have a car. I'm riding the bus, with this bag. I mean, if people knew what was in the bag, I would probably have been mugged. But I just didn't know what I was doing. And I think there's a lot to be said to innocence in a lot of things. When you look at little kids, when we even look at the politics of the day, the division that exists in the world, and how children, they don't see that. They don't see color, because of innocence. They're not racially charged, or they're not discriminatory based on anything, because they're innocent. And so I think there's a lot to be said about innocence in business, but there's a line or a gap between that innocence and naivety to then being savvy and understanding, taxes. I think a lot of people, when you get your first tax bill when you're successful, it's a shock to you. Understanding investing, and the same thing. Transcending service, and now talking about impact and legacy in the financial world, the financial realm. Creating generational wealth, securing your family's financial future is all important. And I got to tell you, one of the things that I think sometimes rubs people the wrong way, and maybe even from the early days when I was teaching at Life West and had you as a student, is I've always felt that chiropractors should be proud to make a lot of money. And this idea that if you make a lot of money, you're not serving, I think is so false. And I also think it's very damaging and dangerous to the health and wellness and financial security of our profession. Great service does not mean that you have to be poor, right? In fact, the richer that you are, the more you can give, because you cannot give what you don't have. So there's no amount of poverty that you could take on that would make someone else rich. There's no amount of sadness that you can take on that would make someone else happy. There's also no amount of sickness that you can take on that would make someone else well. And so the same thing, you can't give. If you want to give people health, you must be healthy yourself. You can't be sick and in bed and then helping people to be healthy. If you want to make people happy, you have to be happy yourself. And if you want to help people to become wealthy, whether that's financially, spiritually, emotionally, or whatever that is, but you must also be wealthy yourself so that you have that which to give. So one of my charges later in life now is to help chiropractors to become incredibly successful, understanding business strategies, to actually see if we can get them to fall in love with the idea of marketing and selling and mindset, so that they can understand that the path to reaching more people and making a greater impact, and also creating the lifestyle that they desire, is based on not just their clinical skill set, but also their willingness to fall in love with the idea of being an entrepreneur. And so, we have multitude of programs now. We're literally serving hundreds and thousands of chiropractors and other service providers all around the world, helping them to embrace these concepts. And so that's sort of in the second half of my career, what we've been dedicated to. On the chiropractic side, we still do international outreach. Obviously, over the past year, not so much because of COVID, But we do international outreach every year: Philippines, El Salvador, Mexico, where we go into these countries and provide care. And so, yes, I still do take care of people in that scenario. But also, my wife and I own a chiropractic franchise called the Specific Chiropractic Centers. We have 13 locations across the United States. Obviously, 2 last year with the pandemic, a slowdown year as far as growth, but we have planned this year the opening of many, many new units all around the country. And so, yeah, I think that the key here is, in order to reach as many people as possible, you have to have as much financial success as possible.
Mhm. Yeah, I'd like to key in on two different things. One is the practice model of the specific, and the other one is the Black Diamond Club or the business education that you're providing. Because the way that I'm contextualizing pre-Chiro education for people is you're working, I kind of split innate into your inner state, and state is an acronym for your inner scientist, thinker, artist, teacher, and entrepreneur. And the entrepreneur piece is definitely something that I think you're already sharing with tons of chiropractors, and it'd be great to just introduce prospective students to, like, what are chiropractors studying, or what are some entrepreneurial principles that I can start to play with and wrap my head around and engage with. So I love, that's kind of a two-part question. If you could kind of unpack the upper cervical model as you're expressing it through the specific, and then also some of the business principles that you're teaching.
Absolutely. So the model that we use in the specific chiropractic centers, we practice exclusively upper cervical. Like I said, it's the exact same as what we were doing in Costa Rica, with one exception. We're not seeing 200 patient visits a day, because that's taxing physically, and we're not charging the equivalent of $12 a visit. So it's kind of the reverse of that. It's a lower volume with a much higher fee, more of an exclusive boutique type experience. But also, just like Costa Rica, we do not accept third-party reimbursement. So I got to say, like, from a third-party reimbursement standpoint, I am the last person that you want to talk to. I've never received third-party reimbursement and never counseled anybody on that. I have other people on our team that can help with that, but I know nothing about that. But that's, I think, what makes it unique. Our clients come to us, our patients, our practice members come to us, and they pay out of pocket in order to achieve a desired result that we're able to deliver by checking their nervous system and adjusting the top 2 bones of their neck when necessary. And that's also unique. We do not adjust our patients on every visit, yet they still have to pay, because it actually, in my mind and in my opinion, it fits an existing model. They go to the dentist to get regular checkups. They go to their gynecologist. They get pap smears. They get mammograms. Men get PSA, yearly physicals. So they're used to being tested for all kinds of things. And when they get tested, they actually go to get tested in hopes that everything is fine. They're never doing it expecting a negative outcome. And so it fits the model. People pay to get their nervous system checked to make sure that everything is fine, and they understand that. In the business side of things, one of the latest sort of chapters of my life has been expanding out beyond chiropractic, to help other service providers. And in this realm, I will be really clear, because I'm really clear everywhere I go. But I think a lot of people, especially in the chiropractic profession, are like, "What is he doing?" We have been acquiring several companies over the course of time. We acquired an EHR, electronic health records company called Katana, where we have consolidated marketing and sales under the hood of the record keeping platform, including funnel building, email drip campaigns, text marketing, reputation management, all of those things under the hood of your EHR, and on website building also under the hood of your EHR. We also acquired a company called Chiro Sushi Media. And I think that's, as a prospective or incoming student or current student, one of the things that I think is important in 2021 and beyond is that you're not just going to be a chiropractor. In a lot of sense, because you are providing healthcare information, you really are a media company. You have your digital marketing, social media channels. If you're on TikTok or Snapchat or LinkedIn, or all of that is media distribution, if you truly understand it. Website. And so we acquired Chiro Sushi Media, which is a media company to help chiropractors to distribute media. And inside of that, we have begun doing a lot of different efforts. We have our own podcast that's called None of Your Business. But I think the biggest thing that we have right now going on for entrepreneurs and to help chiropractors to become better entrepreneurs is our flagship event called Summer Camp. Every year in August, we put on an event, Summer Camp. The website is www.cometosummercamp.com. And we invite the world's top entrepreneurs to come to summer camp to teach service providers how to reach more people, make a bigger impact, and create the lifestyle that they deserve. Past speakers have included people like Grant Cardone, Tom Bilyeu, JP Sears, Brian Tracy, Jay Abraham, Jordan Belfort, the Wolf of Wall Street, Eric Thomas, the E.T., the hip hop preacher. And this year in 2021, we have David Meltzer's headlining along with Patrick Bet David. And it's going to be an absolutely amazing, amazing event. And here's the deal. I guarantee you this. If you come to summer camp, you will hear people like Jordan Belfort talk about chiropractic. Jay Abraham talk about chiropractic. This year, you will hear David Meltzer talk about chiropractic. Patrick Bet David talk about chiropractic. And here's the thing is I've realized that we can make our Instagram, accounts and crack people's necks and try and get a somewhat of a following based off, this cracking sound or whatever we're doing. But really, if we're going to make a big impact, we have to reach the people that have a huge following. We have to reach the people that are actually influencers, and we have to get them to recognize and advocate for chiropractic. My world, one of the easiest ways, one of the easiest avenues for me to do that was through entrepreneurship and entrepreneurial efforts, leveraging my contacts, my relationships, and breaking into that, sort of sphere and arena. My goal is to eventually create summer camp so big that we are teaching people all around the world how to be successful service providers. And hopefully it gets to a point where chiropractic, it won't get there by making chiropractic the centerpiece. People won't be attracted to that. But hopefully it gets to a point where it's so big that we can reintroduce chiropractic as a key component to financial success. Because I honestly do believe that if you want to find financial success, if you want to be successful in your business, you need to have a clearly functioning nervous system. Yesterday, David Meltzer and I were doing a podcast interview, and he said himself, without any prompting, that he believes that people are naturally healthy and they're naturally successful, but that they just need to not have any interference to their health or to their success. I was like, bro, we're talking chiropractic now, aren't we? And that's the thing is if we could get people like him, if we can get Jordan Belfort, Jay Abraham, these people that have massive followings on social media to begin to advocate, Grant Cardone, to advocate for chiropractic, well, I think that will make a massive shift in the way people are viewing it. They'll stop viewing it as neck pain, headaches, and back pain. Start seeing it as a critical component to the function to human performance, or the function of the human being that allows them to fully express themselves. And part of your full expression is a default setting of success.
No, absolutely. Very exciting. And Pre-Chiro is a reintroduction to chiropractic for the general public. It's a rebrand, so to speak. And I believe that the young people that are in the education system have so much juice and so much energy and so many connections to these people that you talk about. They're the nephews of your Patrick Bet David. And if they were getting chiropractic care in their health center after maybe out partying the night before, got their head put on straight, had a clear functioning nervous system, were able to go back to school the next Monday and feel like, oh my gosh, chiropractic is really helping me get through college efficiently and effectively, and I'm performing better because of it, then they'd go out into the world and have a consciousness that chiropractic is helpful for more than just what it's currently branded as. And I think that the summer camp you're describing, I don't know if I'm sure you're familiar with Yannick Silver and his Evolved Enterprise movement. I believe they call it the Maverick. Anyway, they're also doing camps, and I definitely see the importance of social entrepreneurship in the projects that you're involved with, because as you know, the current trend is you have to have some good baked into the business that you're doing. And it sounds like everything that you're doing is to really help humanity recognize how beneficial chiropractic can be to their life, to their expression in life, and like you're talking about, these high functioning individuals all use chiropractic. Some of my patients are, you know, the guy who sold more NFL jerseys than Tom Brady the year that I was taking care of him in my office. I was trying to tell him, hey, can we just do like a promo video? You know, but he's expensive to hire if you want him to market your brand. And if chiropractic's my passion, and pre-chiro is my brand, then you know I'm going to have to raise some money. So having aligned with people that you're talking about is really what I'm doing. I mean, I'm going to the game developers conference on behalf of chiropractic and saying, how do we take that technology that they're putting into NBA Live, where they put all the sensors on the body, and translating that into a way to introduce people to the art form that you described, the physical art form of chiropractic. I think those are the types of intersections that we're going to need to move into, and it sounds like you're already doing that. So awesome.
Sounds like
Awesome
you're doing it
examples.
too, though.
Most definitely.
Don't sell
Most
yourself short. That sounds amazing.
Yes, yes. And I mean, I'm trying to align with people such as yourself, because I think that we all share a common vision for chiropractic, just being positioned in a different place than it's currently positioned in the general public's eye. And also, interestingly, with the Philippines, my dad's physical therapist is best friends with the head of the medical school in the Philippines. And he said, the day you want to open a chiropractic school in the Philippines, just let me know. And obviously, it has to be done right. And I believe that pre-chiro is sort of that prerequisite to a student going into chiropractic school and knowing what chiropractic is, being introduced to all these different philosophical tenets, but also just the business and the mindset of the different art forms and what you can choose. So if a new school is popping up in the Philippines, we need pre-chiro to properly contextualize what this thing is. And that's where I see the value, and also just connecting the dots. I mean, you're a pillar in the profession right now with all the projects that you're involved in. And to have a student be able to see, okay, these are the chiropractic companies that I can engage with. These are the organizations. These are the influencers. It just helps really, you know, and we value coordinated function. We value the connecting of dots so that people can really feel more whole. So anyway, I see this project as being really integral to a lot of what you do, as well as far as just connecting people to your projects, to these little pipelines of the camp or the clinics that you manage. So anyway, can we just kind of wrap up by you just sharing, you know, if you were a chiropractic student or you were entering chiropractic school today, how would you approach it? What's maybe the parallel curriculum that you would set up for yourself to make sure that these 3 years or 4 years were as worthwhile as they could be?
Yeah, you know, and the world is very much different today than it was when I started chiropractic college. You know, the internet, social media, all of those things. So, on a very sort of 30,000-foot view, parallel curriculum, I would read green books. I would start, I always recommend read them in reverse order. So read, you know, volume 39, then 38, 37, read them back, not from the last page, but read them in the reverse order. I would also immerse myself in business, entrepreneurship, strategies and ideas, mentors. We also have something called the club. In fact, offline here, I want to connect you to Ryan Bones and Cassidy Bones. They're the leaders of the club. That is our student version of the Black Diamond Club. And so I'll get you guys connected because I see a lot of potential collaboration and synergies that we could do there. I would also, though, because of the internet does two things. One is it shortens the time gap on information transmission. So, you know, information travels now instantaneously all around the world. Whatever's happening, and, you know, something happens in France, we'll know about it, you know, literally a minute later. So it cuts down the time gap on transmission of information, which is interesting because you're in college, you're in chiropractic college, or you go to college to get information, but we can really shortcut that time by using the internet. So I would leverage the internet to my advantage as far as getting as much information as possible. Like I said earlier in this interview, I had to drive to Atlanta. Well, now look, you plug into pre-chiro and someone else is doing all the work for you and bringing the people to you onto your screen. But It's up to you to actually make a commitment and discipline to consume the information, because just to know it's there is not good enough. And be thankful that you don't have to drive 6 hours just to hear an interview like this. Second thing that the internet does is it draws us all closer together. It eliminates geographical boundaries and borders. And so even if I was in Spartanburg, South Carolina to study chiropractic, and I dreamt of moving to Chattanooga, Tennessee to open my office, I could literally be in Chattanooga, Tennessee while I was sitting in Spartanburg, South Carolina, because of this thing called the internet. I could develop relationships and connections 3, 4 years out before I opened my office. I could nurture and develop those relationships to the point where when I opened my office, I opened my office with already 20, 50, or 100 valuable connections that would refer to me and help me to grow my business. I would not be spending time, if I were a student, playing video games or looking at random YouTube videos, or making memes. I would be connecting with people just like you're doing right now. And I'm not going to say it was easy, but I mean, you didn't bleed and you didn't die. You wrote an email, we connected, and here we are. And then you can develop and create and foster and cultivate really phenomenal relationships. And so I wish that I had tools like, social media, tools like the internet. I would have leveraged those tools like crazy to shortcut the time that it takes or took me to get from where I started to where I am now. I mean, I think that if I had the possibility of doing it all over again, but not doing it in 1992, doing it in 2021, I could have gotten here 10 years earlier. Because it's just everybody watching, you just have way, way better tools.
Mm-hmm. Tons of value. We could probably go on for a lot longer, but I really want to respect your time. I know you're very busy, so I just want to wrap this up. Is there any sort of final messages to that sort of younger version of yourself, that high school version of you or college version of you, just to stay focused? Because another thing that the internet does is it distracts us, like you mentioned. And also just there's a lot of pressures from our parents, from our coaches. There's a lot of pressures from different places. How do people stay rooted in their inner belief systems, their inner values, and really find chiropractic to be the most aligned path for them? Like, what's that process look like?
Well, one of the interesting things about chiropractic is one of the premises is that your body adapts to its environment, internal and external, and it's the body's inability to adapt that causes human beings to become sick. And that's 100% true when practice, but it also applies to life in general, and it also applies to business and success. And what I would say is be very mindful of the environment that you're creating for your success. That includes the people that you're around, the people that you hang around. A lot of times people that love you are very well-meaning and give you advice. It's not the best advice. You need to surround yourself intentionally with people that are far more successful than you, that know far more than you, and you need to allow yourself to adapt. And what that means is that you learn, right? You adapt to that environment. You learn from them so that you adapt into that environment. I think that's absolutely clutch. And the last thing that I want to say is just a look back. You had said, I had you as my business teacher. I don't know if you remember me. First of all, yes, of course I remember you. Second, though, let's also just pause for a second and reflect on that. When one, I was a teacher, so probably everybody was like, "Who's this dope?" And the thing is that people who can't practice teach probably didn't realize I had been in practice and had made money. If they did, they probably held that against me and were like, here's this egotistical jerk. But at the same time, then a parallel trajectory. And I talk about this all the time. Who would have known that our paths would ever cross again? And so I probably had opportunity to be a real jerk to you, and you probably had opportunity to be a real jerk to me. And by not doing that and leaving open the door of possibility of later future intersection, leaves open the door for collaboration. So I also want to acknowledge you and everything that you have accomplished. What a great movement that is underway that you are creating. I want to recognize your tenacity You had reached out to us, and I think that we didn't get back to you. And I think maybe you might have followed up, and then we finally got this done because you are tenacious in your vision and you are hell bent on getting this done. And that's a phenomenal character trait. And I just think that, look, you just never know what's possible. But I think that I hope that me and, nearing 50 years old, and you 26 years old, but I hope that through this project that we serve as a testament for the younger generation that is in high school, in undergrad, maybe starting chiropractic college, of what is possible. And I want to encourage everybody to not throw away what's possible by making bonehead mistakes today. Be mindful, be thoughtful. If you want to end up like Shawn or like Ben, then look, you have to be very intentional, and you have to take the steps every day to continue down that path, because it is easy to fall into the trap of video games or partying or whatever's happening. But when you have a strong enough vision and you're tenacious about getting it done, then nothing can stop you. I mean, and look here at Ben, for example.
Yeah, and I also, just final message, want to share that you were one of the few teachers that I had in chiropractic school who had been in the real world practice, but also had been successful and was sharing things that I gotta say, I needed a follow-up. I needed 1, 2, 3, 4 more reinforcements of how do you create a holding company and an operating company and have them work together. I mean, still to this day, I haven't cemented that in my mind of how that works. And you had introduced it to me in business fundamentals, which I think I should have gotten my first year of school, and probably all the way through school. I should have continued to be exposed to some of the concepts in your class. But I think that you brought in people who were just the guy from Cash Practice, Miles Bodson. You had brought him in to speak about how every time somebody reaches into their pocket to pay you, that's like a decision, a business decision, or a moment where they could say no. And all of a sudden chiropractic's not as prioritized, and they walk out your door, you might never see them again. So it's like, we need more of that, and we need it earlier on, so that if students hear some messages from you right now, they have plenty of time to find resources that you've created, that I've helped build, to continually reinforce that for themselves. Because like you said, chiropractors are entrepreneurs, and that's a whole world of unknown to the new graduates. And I really think that you should have an entrepreneurial venture before chiropractic school. That's kind of my new premise, is like, there's 5 stages of pre-chiropractic. The 4th stage is really starting your own practice on your college or high school campus, of a pre-chiro club or a pre-chiro practice, however you want to brand it. But we want to support these young students to get that experience of like, okay, how do I start an LLC? How do I open up a business account? And, how do I manage my money differently, so that when they're getting these student loans, they know how to leverage the student loans? Because I'm sure you could go for 5 or 10 minutes on how students are using their student loans is not the most advantageous that it could be. So anyway, there's tons of insight, there's tons of layers, and the more I can help demystify this path, I think that we're going to just have a stronger next generation. It's that I could go on. The other thing is, you talked about going to Logan and then teaching at Life West and being on the Sherman board. All of these schools are disconnected. Like, you shouldn't say it as though I was on this team and then I was on this team and now I'm playing on this team. It's actually, we're all part of the same profession. But this project came about when I entered school for location purposes, went to a school in Portland that was very medicalized, and then transferred to Life West, and saw not only do these schools not talk to each other, but they're completely different from each other. And I did a project as a student to connect all the, it was a Ning platform, as an online community where I connected, like, I don't know, 150 students from 18 schools. And then I went into clinic and let that go. I didn't stay connected to it, and that was my own fault. But I was sitting in your business class, and by the way, I named my office The Shift. You're the specific. There was some parallels to what you were doing that I was trying to kind of, take and mimic, or morph into my own version of my reality. But anyway, I just want to thank you for all your contributions on my path, and also just this conversation, because I think it was very valuable to any prospective student out there.
Absolutely. And I'm just shocked. I'm shocked at all. Like you're like repeating things like I'm hearing the greatest hits album. Like that's awesome. You remember all of those things. That's absolutely amazing. It's my honor and my pleasure. And look, anything that we can do to help support pre-Chiro and your movement and what you're doing, please don't hesitate to reach out. Let somebody on our team know, or reach out to me. I'll get it directed to
Thank you.
whoever needs to support that.
Appreciate it.